Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our latest live video. I'm just delighted to say I'm joined by Richard Foreman today, and we talk all about brand today. So, Richard, welcome to the video. Did you want to kind of just quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Richard Foreman. I'm the MD of Frank Virtual. We are a creative agency, and branding is very much at the heart of what we do in our day-to-day work. So today we're going to go through a brief presentation. I'm going to talk about what is a brand, what makes a successful brand, the benefits of a strong brand, and then if you're still wide awake, guys, I'll do a brief case study on the client where we did a bit of a rebrand and a repositioning for them. This is going to be a bit of a trial and error this morning because for whatever reason, my slide deck won't appear on my screen. So I've forwarded the contents of this presentation to Mike this morning. So he's going to be in charge of my slides. So that could be interesting to say the least.
Yeah, so we're going to be very much in the Downing Street press conference mode of next slide, please, I think, Richard. But hopefully, guys, you can bear with us. As with any of these videos that we do, if anyone's got any questions as we go through and you want to put them in the comments, please do as well. We'll try to answer as many of those as possible. Any questions, comments, anything like that would be great. This video, as well as being live, will be recorded as well and be available on our YouTube page and the various channels. So, Richard, I'll hand it over to you and I'll bring the presentation up. And
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's us. If you want to go down to the next slide. Well, I always say in business, you can't hide your brand. And if you go to the next slide, because my mantra, if you like it, if you're in business, you have a brand, like it or not. And it can have a profound impact on your business when you've got a strong brand. So it's really important. And what is a brand is the next slide, I think. Okay. A brand is very much about your values and your personality. You as an individual, Mike, you have your own personality and your own values. And in business, it's no different. You can express those values and that personality no differently. We tend to categorize brands. You've got your big successful brands out there, I know, like Virgin or Cadbury or BP. And then underneath that, we tend to have what I call challenger brands, like Fever Tree or Primark. And then more recently, especially with social media and the likes of Instagram, you may hear about personal branding too, which is basically bloggers, influencers, personal trainers who are trying to be the authority, if you like, in their sector. And outside of that, we've got what I call Me Too. The Me Too businesses are those businesses that in real terms don't really have an interest in branding. You can be successful without having a big brand, but it's going to make life a lot easier. You're going to be a lot more recognizable if you do have that brand. Okay, next slide, please. You didn't know about this, Micah. We're going to do a brand quiz. Right, you're either going to see a line, a strap line, or a logo, and we're going to work out which is it. So next slide, please. Who's that?
Oh, that's Nike.
Thank you. Okay, next one. There you go. And the next one. Okay, stop there. McDonald's. Any idea what their line is? Their strap line?
Is it simply?
Or is it I'm?
Oh, I'm loving it. Yeah.
There you go. Next one. Every little helps.
Is that Tesco?
You'll find out when you press the button.
Tesco, yeah.
Oh, well done. Well done. Next one. HSBC.
Is it the world's local bank?
Go on. Well done. You're doing brilliantly.
I feel like I'm a bit of a cheater with that one. I did work at HSBC for a little while, so
right, okay. Far away. Eat fresh.
Eat fresh. Don't know that one.
Press the button.
Subway, of course, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I was about to get it wrong sooner or later, wasn't I?
No, it's funny, Apple, one of the biggest companies on the planet, they don't use their strapline much, and hardly anybody ever knows it. I don't think I've actually come across anybody who's done this brand quiz who's got it.
No, I wouldn't have a clue.
Okay. Go on, then. Press it. They think different.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
And it's not. They don't use it. It's there, but they stopped using it a while ago. Albeit it's still their strapline. Okay, next one. Be the best.
Feels like it should be some sort of sportswear manufacturer, but I wouldn't. I don't know.
No.
Don't know.
Army. It's the army. Be the best.
Right, okay.
Okay, I think we're nearly there now. Oh, yes, this is the last one. L'Oreal.
Is that because I'm worth it?
Aha. Are you? There you go. You did actually, I have to say, you did really, really well. Really
so to
well.
my shame, it's probably because I remember the 1990 adverts with Jennifer Aniston, and
oh yeah.
that's probably my only reason I got that one right.
Right. So anyway, so you can see there a lot of the big companies out there. You know, you don't have to be a big company though to have a brand or have a positioning line and a nice strong logo. So what I'm going to go through now is what makes a successful brand. Okay, next slide. So what is really key, you know, in any business is understanding the space that you're working in real terms. You know, understanding your sector, and that's in terms of knowing your positioning in terms of where you fit within that space within your sector and what your competition are up to. Now, it could be marginally topical. If we think of the Euros and think of football, let's say as a football manufacturer, and I produced a £400 football because I'm the Louis Vuitton of football manufacturers, and they're beautifully hand stitched and put together beautifully at the top end of the scale. At the other end, I could be a football manufacturer that is knocking footballs out at £1, and they're the ones that you see in these big baskets at petrol forecourts, for instance. So we've got two ends of the spectrum: the very top end, where massively expensive hand stitched football, and then at the lower end, a volume product for £1. And I produce a football, let's say, for $9.99. So I've got to work out my positioning, if you like, where I fit in that space. So it's really important to work out where you want to be within your sector and having a real strong knowledge of what your competition are doing as well. Okay, next slide, please. One of the first things we have to look at, you know, once you know your competition, it's very much about coming out with your compelling customer proposition, excuse me, or, you know, what some people call your USP. It's what makes you stand out. It's what you do differently from the competition, and it's how you can be unique in your sector. And that is really key to come out with a compelling customer proposition. I quite often find that clients that we work with can't see the wood for the trees, and they struggle, if you like, to actually find out what makes them different. And we're quite good at interrogating clients actually and drilling down and trying to work out, you know, what they do differently. So it's really important. Next slide, please. Emotionally engaged. Sorry, I couldn't read that on your screen there. So it's excuse me, emotional engagement, and that's really key. You know, in any personality, or you have values, you have a social conscience, and you express that in such a way that engages with your target market. You know, it's really key that you come over as being authentic. It's about being believable. Got to have a good feel about it. You're on the same wavelength. That emotional engagement with your target market is a really key component of building and developing a successful tone of voice. Excuse me, next slide. Thanks, Mike. I just referenced tone of voice. Tone of voice is really, it's the way you dress and it's the way you behave in terms of your brand. An example could be that, let's say you visit a new website for the first time. When you land on that homepage, you get an impression of what that business is about straight away. Is it funny? Is it serious? Is it professional? You get a feel for that personality as soon as you look on that. And that's because it's a combination of the words that you're reading and the images that you are seeing. And that's what we call tone of voice. That gives that overall look and feel. So it's really important that people get that the imagery and the words and everything all work together. Next slide, please. Your logo. Your logo's is what I call the physical badge that your target market recognize. It's the badge that reflects your brand values and needs to be individual and distinctive. You know, I hear people occasionally say, yeah, I've got a brand, I've got a logo. No, your logo is an important component and element of the brand that you're trying to create. But, you know, it's an integral part, but that's all it is. You know, there's more to it than that to make a successful brand. Next slide, please. Values and conscience. I mean, your brand personality, you know, has to have a conscience, and it's an important ingredient in what I call building trust. especially with the huge growth in social media. And it's so easy to get content out there today. So you must have it's not all about return on investment. It's about having a social conscience and considering others possibly less fortunate than yourself and how you can support these opportunities. I think, and if you look at COVID, that there's been this global pandemic, and you hear in the news about homelessness and people with mental health problems, and it's how you as a business can actually support people in that situation, and because not everybody's in a good space. And so we do have a social, we all have a social conscience, and your business is no different. That too has a social conscience in terms of how you can support those less fortunate than yourself. Okay, next slide, please. Consistency. It's really, really important, because there are so many opportunities now to get your business out there in terms of all the media channels. There are so many touch points. It could be, it could be using social media, it could be using local radio, it could be using local press, it could be some poster advertising, it could be digital marketing, it could be direct mail. There's so many ways to engage with your target market. What is really key is that across every single touch point or every opportunity to engage with your target market, you are seen as being consistent the whole way through. It is really, really key, being consistent. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, it's a good one, this. It's people don't often think about it. When you actually think about a business, it's about really, you think about your profit and loss account. You think about your cost of purchase or your cost of sale. But when you think about these things and you're putting your balance sheets and your flow forecast together, you've got to think about how that impacts your brand, if you like. So really, when you're actually developing your business and talking about your business objectives, it's really key that you understand that your branding has to dovetail with your business objectives the whole way through. Okay, next slide, please. And the other thing that we need to be aware of, people evolve, we change, we develop, and it's no different, if you like, in brands. Many brands are also seen as what I call, or we call, early adopters. And so, you'll see with successful brands that how they actually don't stay static. They develop and grow, and early adopters tend to grasp on new technologies and new opportunities much quicker. Okay, I think that we're nearly there on this part. If you do the next slide. Must be authentic. Yeah, I mean, being authentic is really, to me, it's about trust. If I'm doing business with somebody, you're hoping they'll be authentic. You'll hope they'll be trustworthy. You hope they'll be real. You hope they'll be reliable. You hope they'll be genuine and true. And a brand must actually, shine that through their business. It's really important that brands are seen as authentic and trustworthy. Okay. Excuse me. Now I'm going to talk. So I've really talked about what are the constituent parts, if you like, in terms of what you have to consider when developing a brand for your business. Now it's about, the benefits that we can actually deliver, if you like, the benefits of a strong brand. And it's really key, because some people think about, oh, if I've got a brand, what's it going to cost me to do all this? And sometimes it's not so much what it costs. It's more about the return on investment in this situation. If you create a strong, powerful brand out there, it's going to deliver significantly greater than what it's cost you to invest in getting it there in the first place. So, of course, when you have a strong brand and you're out there in the marketplace, you're going to have positive engagement with your target market, with your customer, if you like. And the engagement, remember, is a two-way conversation. And when you have that positive engagement and that two-way conversation, hopefully it's about building relationships, if you like. And hopefully when you build relationships with your target market, and they like it, they're going to spread the word. They're going to talk about your product or your service, and hopefully you can become brand ambassadors further down the line. Next slide, please. I mentioned this, in previously that, trust. Once somebody can be trusted, because that's implicit in any relationship that you have. Trust is a very powerful commodity, and when you have a successful brand, if you like, trust is implicit in that, and it's really critical when building your brand. And it has a lot of leverage, trust. Next slide, please. Now, this is about staff retention. Now, everybody likes to work for successful companies, and when you have a strong brand, it creates a stronger and better culture working as a team in any business. And beyond staff retention, when you have a company or a business has a brand, it's imperative that that is inherent with everybody that's involved in your business. I've been in situations where the sales force, for instance, of a company are very good at understanding the brand values of their company. But let's say the purchasing department or the accounts department or the admin team, who are slightly more remote, let's say, don't buy into it. They don't actually see the benefit of that culture, or they haven't actually been taught the benefit of having that culture. So it's really key that in any business that, you know, for a brand to be successful, it's seen as it literally flows through every aspect of the company. Next slide, please. And of course, having that strong brand, it makes the launch of new products or new services much easier, because you've already got the buy-in, you've already got a target market that believes in your business and already has that trust. Next slide, please. And of course, it helps with customer recognition, because there's no need to educate your customer, because you've already a trusted brand. They understand what you're about, what your service or product offering is, and they've already bought into that. So that's really important. Next slide, please. And of course, it's really key having loyal customers, which is what every business wants, because loyal customers, we know, spread the word, and they can become brand ambassadors for you or influencers, and they're there obviously for hopefully repeat purchases. And you know, 84% of people trust recommendations from people they know, making them the most influential form of advertising. That's from Nielsen research. So, you know, recommendations are key, and that's 84% of people trust recommendations from people they know, which is a massive figure. Next slide, please. And of course, when people have bought into your product or service and they come back for repeat purchases, you know, when you have a price rise, there's very little resistance. They've already bought into the culture of what you're offering them. They like what you do. I mean, so price rises, again, don't become an issue. I mean, if you think of the likes of Apple, when they bring out a new iPhone, which is probably 50% more expensive than its competition, people are queuing around the corner, so price isn't an issue when they buy into a brand. Next one, please. Which is ease of purchase as well. Of course, when you're a trusted brand out there, that ease of purchase is so much easier. There is little doubt that they're more receptive to purchase because they're already engaged with the brand, if you like, so that makes life a lot easier for them. Next slide, please. And of course, that gives you a competitive edge. You know, if you're in a situation or an area where you don't have a lot, there aren't many brands in your space, that means you don't have quite the same level of competition. And you have that strong, compelling customer proposition. You're engaging with your target market again. So that puts you in a very strong position, real competitive edge. The future of brands, well, as I said before, you know, like people, brands evolve, they don't stay static. If you go to the next slide, you know, we look at the moment, we've got more and more social media channels out there than ever, and that will continue to grow. I mean, brands embrace social media extensively, and social media, there are now 4.2 billion active social media users, twice as many as 5 years ago. And I don't know, but I'm guessing 4.2 billion can't be far off half of the planet. So there are twice as many users as 5 years ago. And on average, these people are spending 2.5 hours a day on social media, which is a huge amount of time. So it is really important that the brands embrace the opportunity to sort of grow their business through social media. Next, please. Brands, what I call early adopters too, they tend to embrace new technologies quicker. And we've got here IT, augmented reality, and artificial intelligence. Now, if I use, let's say, augmented reality, you know, in terms of the future of brands. Now, for instance, you may, if you're going to book some fabulous holiday to Mauritius or somewhere, there's an opportunity to talk to a travel agent who could probably stick some goggles on you, and before you know it, while you're sitting in his office, you're with the goggles on, you're in the middle of Mauritius, and you can more or less smell the sea, you can see the hotel room and everything else. So it's all, because it's all about user experience that people reference today, and having a successful brand and enabling the opportunity to create that user experience, which augmented reality do, it has a profound impact on the business going forward. Next slide, please. Right, this is quite interesting. I call this responsible consumerism. And, you know, brands really have today, it's not just about a return on investment. They have a responsibility to help those less fortunate themselves. They have a responsibility, you know, to help with the environment. And It's all about supporting ethical opportunities. If you're going to have that conscience, it could be simple that a supermarket could be saying, right, we're going to only have paper bags, we're only going to use green electricity. Or it could be a company promoting fairer working conditions and a minimum wage. If we look at, say, Boohoo, last year, where they get a lot of criticism about outsourcing their manufacturing in the likes of Leicester, where people weren't getting the minimum wage, their share value dropped quite dramatically, and it took them a little while to recover it, and they have recovered it because they've gone about it the right way. But it does show you, if you don't get responsible consumerism right, it can have a negative impact on your business. And because also it's about showing your brand has some humanity about you. And having that humanity helps engaging with your target market. So it's really important people understand that. Okay, next one, please. I like this one. This is slightly different. This is about, I don't know about you, Mike, but I use voice a lot as a voice activation on Google especially. If you look at Amazon's Alexa, for instance, when they actually launched that, I think in 2016, I think they had 130 odd skill sets. Now when you talk to it, they're over 100,000. 20% of Google customers use voice to actually find information online. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I want some information, it's a lot quicker to talk to Google than it is to type up information. So voice is an area where it's going to grow massively, and more brands are embracing voice as an opportunity to engage.
I guess that's one of those things as habits change, that one. Because I mean, I have to admit, I would type it. I wouldn't think of using voice, but I'm sure over time I will develop and start using it.
And of course it's got a lot better. It's got a lot more sophisticated. The problem with voice several years ago was it had a bit of a problem with dialects and understanding what you're trying to say. But the software and the technology has got so much better these days that, it does tend to recognize things. I mean, Siri works well, Google works well. There's lots of them out there. I tend to use Google a lot, and it works well. PayPal's got a voice assistant. Domino's, when you're ordering pizzas, now got a voice assistant. And over 50% of smartphone devices use voice at least once a day. So again, the future of brands in terms of voice will continue because it makes life a lot easier. Next slide, please. Right, so I've talked really about what a brand is. I've talked about what are the constituent parts, if you like, of developing a brand. And I've talked about how brands can deliver success to a business. So I thought the proof is in the pudding, or the proof is in the eating. If you go to the next slide, I'm going to talk about Eden Estate Agents. Next slide again, please, and show you a project that we worked on. Right, excuse me. Eden Estate Agents are a high street estate agent based in Penrith in Cumbria. The background to their challenge, if you like, was that second and third time buyers and sellers were coming into their office and they're doing a reasonable amount of business with these people. The challenge they found after having acquired the business was the fact that your first-time sellers and first-time buyers were going past their office and weren't engaging with them whatsoever. So that's what the research was about. And they said that the problem we've got is that we seem to be doing okay at the sort of middle and top end, but the volume end of the market, your first-time buyers and sellers, they're just walking past our door. They don't seem to get it that we can work for them or work with them. So it's a matter of, if you like, sort of realigning their business. We had to do two things. We had to give them a slightly more contemporary look to appeal to a younger demographic, but at the same time, we didn't want to alienate the slightly older, slightly more mature demographic where they're doing a lot of business. So that was the challenge. So it's very much, we have to look at sort of rebranding the company and sort of repositioning it. So there's a fair bit to look at. So I'm going to take you through the next slide. You can see how the process started. So that's their logo, which was Eden Estate Agents. They didn't have a positioning line. They didn't actually do anything with their logo. So we had to sit there and look at the logo and positioning line at the same time. Okay, next slide, please. And next one again. Next one again as well, Mike. There you go. No, we can go back one. Sorry, I was too quick for myself. Right, so you can see the line that we came up, the best in local fresh properties. And you can see we've not changed the logo dramatically. We've really sort of brought it to light. We've got this lovely bright red apple now with little water drops on it, which helps with the fresh. So we've brought it to light. We've given it this nice sort of quite bright green background, definitely giving it a more contemporary look to appeal to a slightly younger demographic. But there's nothing offensive about it, so it's still going to appeal equally to the slightly older, more mature demographic where their heart of their business has been. So you can see that how that worked for their logo. Then we actually came onto their letterhead. On the left-hand side, you can see that's the written side of the letterhead, and you can see how the branding sits on the right-hand margin there with the logo. And then today with digital technology, printing on the reverse side of the letterhead is relatively inexpensive. And so you can see the best in local fresh properties, and you can got this nice image where they're sort of picking these apples in this sort of silhouette background, if you like, on the reverse of the letterhead. Again, it's helping sort of develop and push the brand out a little bit more. Next slide, please. Then you can see on the left-hand side, we've got their new style business card. You can see it's in its nice, strong corporate colors. You've got the nice positioning line on the inside of the card as well, and the contact details of the person. So giving it a much more contemporary look and feel. Next slide, please. Oh, back one. Thanks. You know, you talk to any estate agent, and the first thing to say is our for sale boards are, you know, our most important piece of advertising. You know, they're seen out and about by everybody, so it's really key. We actually put these to research, and probably about 4 or 5 different designs. The one you're seeing here was by far and away the most popular in terms of people being receptive to it. So that's the one that's out there, and it's been out for a year or so now, and it's, you know, it's very, very has a high visibility, to say the least. Next slide, please. Right. Oh, you've gone to. There we go. This is the first bit of marketing collateral that we produced for them. And you can see we've got a nice sort of young image of the girl holding that red apple. And it talks about, you know, how they do things a little bit differently, how they get under the skin of a property. We don't take anything at face value. And you can see how we sort of express that visually on the right-hand side with the fact that we've got the apple on the outside and the orange on the inside. And it's the fact that they don't take any house on face value, because there's 2 things that they do differently to most other estate agents. One is they use a professional photographer, and their photography really is fabulous. I mean, you see a lot of estate agents, the sales negotiator wanders into a property with his smartphone, takes pictures, they're on Rightmove 2 hours later. They don't really care. What Eden estate agents did was they do care, so they always use a professional photographer. And when the negotiator or whoever was going round to that property, they always looked for a feature that made that property stand out, whether it's a terraced house or a masonette or an apartment or a large detached house, whatever it is. They always look for some little unique feature that makes that house stand out, getting under the skin of the property. Okay, thank you. Next slide. Excuse me. So this was the first poster we actually produced for Eden. This went in their high street window, and you can see how we've got nice strong branding. We've got the best in local fresh properties, and we've got the branding straight up front. Next slide, please. This actually was the first piece of advertising that went out in local press. Local papers tend to carry a fair bit of property, and what estate agents generally do, they'll take a half a page or a page, and they actually fill it chock-a-block with properties. It was really important that when we went out there initially to talking to our target market, that they saw Eden estate agents as being a little bit different. And you can say the initial advertising, if you like, actually had no properties whatsoever. All it had on it was the processes, how they do things differently, and how they appeal to their customer base in a much more positive way, that they do things differently, if you like. So the first piece of advertising was all about getting the branding out there, getting that personality out there. So the next tranche of advertising was we then moved forward a little bit. You can see now on the left-hand side, we're still talking about we get under the skin of the property and we do things differently, but now we're actually introducing some properties. So you can see how the advertising evolves from initially just talking about the repositioning and the rebranding and how Eden are different. Then we move that forward where we're still very brand conscious, but at the same time bringing some product into the advertising as well. Next slide, please. And you can see I talked before about consistency across the board. Here you can see their website, which we created for them. You can see, next slide, please. Again, you can see how that worked on Facebook. Next slide, please, again. And again, how you can see that worked on Twitter. So you can see, you know, I talked before about having consistency across all touch points, and you can see here, however we engage with our target market, there is a consistency of how we present that brand. Next one, please. And you can see this is the actual office on the high street in Penrith. Next slide, please. And you can see on these internals here, well, the other thing that we did was we put the branding on the back wall. So we had it made out of acrylic, and it actually sits maybe about half a centimetre away from the wall. So it's sort of backlit, if you like. And again, it's helping to get that branding out there, you know, and it worked really well when you go past the store. The results were hugely impressive, actually. When we first started working with them, they may have had up to maybe 5 properties a month at sort of the first-time buyer, first-time seller level. In a relatively short period, we've actually got that up to now. They have over 50 properties a month at the lower end of the market. So it's grown quite massively, and valuations have grown by 30%, and instructions have grown by 24%. So yeah, it's been a really successful, and that has been the success ultimately has been delivered for 2 things. We've done a rebrand and a repositioning of the business that has engaged with our target market. So next slide, please. So finally, yeah, we sort of created some distinctive branding, a new compelling proposition, and we've repositioned the business very successfully, and at the same time delivered an engaging tone of voice. So that's it, folks. I think that's the last slide. So thank you for your time. So there you go. Sorry, that was a whistle stop tour. I'm sorry Mike was in charge of the presentation. We wouldn't seem to work on my machine. That's a bit of technology for you, but I hope everybody got it.
That's great, Richard. Thank you very much. And I've got a few questions if there have come up from it. So, well, kind of points and questions actually. So, I love your point when you talked about a few things to do with brand and consistency and emotion were the 2 that kind of stood out to me. Consistency. As soon as I think of consistency in brand, I think of McDonald's. Actually, we obviously had them earlier.
Yeah, fabulous.
We've all experienced that where you go into a McDonald's anywhere in the world and it pretty much is the same as if it's here in the UK. And that's one of the things about them. And then emotion, actually, Apple, I think are very, very good at emotion in terms of, you know, that any of their advertising and marketing, it's more about how people feel and act when they have using their product rather than the technical side of things. Do you think
it's all about that user experience? You know, experience that new Apple product. It's, you know, it's not just the technological side of it. And you know, when you get that new product from Apple, it's in nice packaging as well, isn't it? It's all beautifully white. It's beautifully presented as well, isn't it? It's part of that experience, and there is an emotional experience from that when you get something brand new. I mean, people do like, you know, we all like our smartphones, and all right, I'm an Apple advocate, if you like. And I know when I bought, you know, my iPhone and my iPad, you know, it's lovely to open the packaging, and you know, you do have that emotional feel, that emotional bond with these brands.
Yeah,
unquestionably so.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you as well. You know, I see this quite a lot when people are starting business. You hear them, "Does anyone know anyone who can design a logo for me?" And you kind of touched on it earlier. How important is it to invest in brand? I know people can rebrand later down the line, and I guess we all know startup businesses have a limited budget generally, so you know there's only so much can do. But how important is it to at least have a think about the whole, what you're trying to achieve, and being that consistent?
Well, I mean, it's not going to cost you a fortune. I mean, remember, when we talk about a brand, it's what you're trying to get over are your values, if you like, and your personality, your culture as well. And it's just a way, it's just remembering when you engage with anybody, as I say, it doesn't matter whether it's a supplier or a customer, you need to be consistent in that form of engagement. And that's all it is. It's just making sure your personality shines through. Yes, if you've got a marketing budget, it's easier to get the message out there. But with social media, at no cost whatsoever, whether that be Instagram, whether it be Twitter, whether it be LinkedIn, whether it be Facebook, whatever channel it is, there doesn't have to be any cost there. But it's still giving you an opportunity, if you like, to get your branding out there, and so people understand what your business is about, your culture, your personality, your values, your social conscience. People understand what you're about as a business, and not just a business with return on investment.
Absolutely. My next question actually was kind of on that point. Really, was around how important is it? You know, if you position your brand in a certain way that essentially you back that up. I mean, you mentioned example of Boo earlier as an example of a brand where things haven't maybe gone well for them from a PR branding type of point of view. But I mean, we've seen recently BrewDog have been an example of
BrewDog. Yeah, that's another good one. BrewDog came through as a very strong brand, and then we had some people who used to work there that were talking about the culture in the workplace was really bad, and they were badly treated. and BrewDog suffered, but the owners have responded quickly, saying, we were unaware of that culture, or we're going to address that and deal with it immediately. And one of the things that any responsible company will do is, if you talk about crisis PR when you get this negative situation with Boohoo and say BrewDog, the challenge is to go out there and face it straight away and not let it simmer or fester. And it's and then to make it all right, it's damage limitation if you like, but the important point is to deal with that as soon as possible and get your brand back where it should be in as quick as time possible, and do it in an honest and trusting way.
That makes sense.
That's a great example.
Yeah, and I think obviously they're a company that have been very PR heavy, haven't they, over the years in terms of themselves, and obviously they've had the issues that will make that more difficult. They're going to have to develop their brand maybe in a different way, and at least in the short term anyway. Because good PR won't be quite as easy for them, I wouldn't imagine.
No.
Yeah, that's great, Richard. Thank you so much. I mean, I think that's a great introduction for brand, and anybody who's especially in the early stages of their business, I think to at least think about that. Obviously everyone has different budgets and there's different things you can do on it, but have a think about it and make the consistency. I think is so important.
It is. And there isn't a big cost in terms of developing your brand in the first, especially as a new company, especially with social media out there. There's, yes, you need your logo as a graphic device, but that's only just a small part. But making sure you express yourself in a positive way, that you have a positive brand values and a good conscience, and being responsible.
So if anyone wants to find out a little bit more or contact you, Richard, where are the best places to go?
Yeah, website, which is frankvirtual.com. My email is richard@frankvirtual.com. So there you go.
If anyone needs Richard's details and want to find him, obviously they can contact us as well.
Yeah, more than happy to chat to anybody. If anybody is struggling or wants a little bit of advice, more than happy just to have a chat. Delighted to.
Oh, thank you for that, Richard. And like I said, with anyone, if they need to contact, please do come through us. We're more than happy to help with that. So, yeah, thank you very much for your time, Richard. And this, as I mentioned, this will make it available on the YouTube page as well. If people want to watch back and digest certain parts, that'll be available to you as well.
Right. All right. Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Richard.
All right. Take care. Thanks. Bye.